Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday session of Let's Play Every Day. I'm Tim McNiff. There we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Darrell Thompson, Tyler Forness, sporting his Houston Oilers finest. Love it. And Heather Rule, who is squeezing us in and around her duties at the Girls State High School Hockey Tournament, getting the bylines in the Minneapolis Star Tribune. Nice work there. How was day one, Heather?
It was good. It was good. It was quarterfinals can be a little bit of not as competitive sometimes. At least one of my games went to running time last night, 7-0 for War Road. Although there was something interesting in that game. War Road thought they scored, celebrated on the ice. The goal or the puck hit on the two posts on the inside, but as they were celebrating, the ref called it no goal on the ice. So the play was still going. So River Lakes ended up taking it down the ice and shooting it into an empty net because the goalie was at the bench waiting for the goal celebration. So anyway, they did review the play because they do a video replay for the high school league tournaments as well. And they did end up awarding the goal to War Road. So it would have been interesting. That would have made it a 1-1 game. I think War Road probably still would have won that game, but it was quite the interesting sequence. I hadn't seen that before. So, yeah, it was an interesting night, and AA quarterfinals today and then the semifinals tomorrow.
Keep up the good work. We appreciate it. The big story last night, the Gopher men's basketball team played host to Wisconsin. Wisconsin down one player, a role player, based on the situation with Michigan on Saturday. Wisconsin survives by a point, beating the Gophers, 67-66? I'm looking for it. Final score. I'm close. I know it was a 1 point, but why am I not? 68-67, forgive me. And so that's two times the Gophers have played Wisconsin and been with them until about 3 minutes left in the game and been unable to seal the deal. And watching the game last night, I was struck by two things. Number one, as everybody knows, the Gophers just don't have the guys yet. I mean, there's not the depth, there's not the inside presence that necessary, and that resulted in, number two, rebounding. They were terrifically out-rebounded by Wisconsin. The impact that the Minnesota players made for Wisconsin was undeniable in that game. But every time the Gophers called a timeout and ran a set play off a timeout, whatever Ben Johnson drew up worked. They scored off it every time. The announcers even made that acknowledgement too. So I'm left with this. My impression is the future's still bright. I think this guy is a heck of a coach. I think he squeezes every drop he can out of those young men. And I appreciate the effort that they put up last night. They just overmanned against Wisconsin and were not able to get that kind of emotional home court victory on a night where the 82 Big Ten champs were honored. Thoughts on the Gopher men's basketball team?
Yeah, I'm excited about him. I think Ben's time is coming. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm also not. I mean, it is what it is with their modern game. And yeah, he doesn't quite have the ammunition and the guys coming off the bench and the high flyers and the 4- and 5-star recruits, which are kind of overrated anyway. But I just think that he's doing a really good job, and I think that given a little bit more time and just a little bit more of time to even develop the players he has, that he'll be fine. He'll work with it. And he'll be very, very successful.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Darrell said. I remember when we were talking about this team at the beginning of the year, there were people that weren't projecting the Gophers to win like 2 Big Ten games. Well, they've won 4. Yeah. I'm going to bury you, Tim. This is going to be a fun time.
Go ahead.
One of the big things with this team was there was one guy returning, and that was Eric Curry. And he was supposed to be a grad assistant. Like, this team needs time to, 1, accumulate more talent, 2, gel and really implement a true system for what Ben Johnson wants to do. And when you don't have any kind of core nucleus coming from last year's team, it makes it really difficult to have success right away. But the fact that they're hovering around 500, they're playing with these teams, that they played with Michigan State, they beat Michigan. You give Ben Johnson a couple years, we could be talking about a top 5, top 6 team in the Big Ten.
One thing, and I agree with everything that you said, one thing he's got to do is he's got to close that pipeline, because the difference in that game last night was that kid from Lakeville. I mean, every time they needed a big play, whether it was just even tipping a ball out to, the guards out front or a key basket, he made it. and just think about how many players have come out of that Minnesota pipeline. And Darrell, I mean, you know this story firsthand. You're not going to get every kid that comes out of the state, but we're coming out of a situation where we had a guy who didn't recruit anybody in this state. So we've got a lot of bridges to build, but I'm really intrigued to see what he's able to do with the transfer portal and what kids who are watching in other programs who have eligibility left are seeing and potentially thinking about. And remember, he lost 2 kids before the year even started to season-ending injuries.
I think what they'll see is, number one, really good coaching and also opportunity. You know, you're a basketball guy or basketball head, all my basketball people or friends are said, you know what, he really is doing some good things. He's doing some smart things. You know, they talk, I don't want to get into all the technicalities of it, but like lifting the floor, moving people around, making their strong player move away from the basket, getting people in foul trouble. They're doing we saw it last night. You know, their best player fouled out of the game, you know, with like 2 minutes ago and they still won. But I mean, it's they do a very, very good job of making the other team play the entire length of the court and making it challenging. So I think those young men that have an opportunity to come here will see that, especially when he has a chance to put on the film and talk about his philosophy, because he's not talking about it anymore. He's actually executing his philosophy, and that's a lot easier for someone to buy into on a visit when they come to see the school.
Heather Lynn, I know you didn't get a chance to see any of that game last night, so I want to change subjects a little bit to tonight at Williams Arena. It's the final home game for 5 seniors with the Gopher women's basketball program. As Tyler alluded to, I had dire consequences predicted for the Gopher men's basketball team heading into the season, but I was actually pretty optimistic where the Gopher women are concerned. Coming into tonight, they're 12-16 overall, 5-11 in the Big Ten. Heather, I know it's sacrilege to say anything bad about Lindsay Whalen in the state of Minnesota, but am I right to have concerns about Lindsay running this program, or is this just me being me?
Well, it could always just be you, I guess. I don't know. I think whenever I see something about the Gopher women's basketball team, it's you hear about Sarah Scalia and how I know sometimes I wonder, like, is she, the only player who's really doing a lot of good things? It seems like she scores a lot of points, but I don't know if she doesn't have the team around her, or, I'm not sure what it is with, with Lindsay Whalen, who stepped into this and hadn't at all before, I believe. So I think and obviously being the figure she is in Minnesota, I'm sure there's a ton of pressure that comes with that too. And so, I don't know if it's the recruiting or just what's going on there. But I think what I've noticed too is some of the scores and some of the losses. Like if you're, looking at, we talk about the men's side and the men's team, and how they're, first year coach, kind of don't have the players yet, but they're playing, like Tyler said, like they're playing with these teams and they're right there, and even if they're not getting the wins. And some of the results I've seen from the Gopher women, I'm just not seeing that necessarily in a lot of those games. It's kind of like, man, that wasn't even close. So I don't know. I think I don't know if you just kind of throw this year out, or if there's, see how it goes next year maybe, and then maybe get a little more concerned. I mean, it's not, there's been a few years here where the program has not been that great. A lot of people aren't really paying attention to them. So I don't know. It's a little bit concerning, I think, for sure.
Not just me then. I'm glad to hear that. The T-Wolves tip off the second half of the season tonight. Good test. Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis is a team that really had the Timberwolves number for quite some time. And then the Wolves beat them by 43 at Target Center back in November, where like the Grizzlies just had their players on the bench like end of the third quarter because they knew it was over and they just watched. So I'll be interested to see this. Also want to point out Tyus Jones is being the Tyus Jones we expected or hoped for when the Timberwolves drafted him. He's averaging just over 8 points a game and 4.2 assists, shooting 46% from the field. So I'm excited not only to have them starting up the second half of the season, and I've realized how much I missed them when they've been on the All-Star break, but I think this is a great way to start the second half of the season, because if they're a playoff team, Memphis is the team that everybody's talking about. This is the team you don't want to see. This is the team that's going to be that team in the playoffs, and Ja Morant's the guy. So I'll just round ball on this whole thing, starting with you, Tyler. Expectations for this Timberwolves team in the second half of the season.
Get the 6th seed. That should be the expectation. Get the 6 seed, make some noise in the playoffs. This team has all the talent. They've really started to gel chemistry-wise, and you can really see the impact that Chris Finch has had on this team, especially when you just look at opening night up through now. The defense is playing well. The offense is really starting to come together. Cat is starting to look a little bit like a different player. He's starting to really assert himself. Kind of figured out a little bit all the quote-unquote complaining that I know we talked about here on this program about a month ago, where he just wasn't getting calls. That seems to have calmed down a little bit too. It just feels like this team is on the right track, and not getting the 6th seed, I feel like, would be a disappointment at this point. Make the playoffs. Don't make this play-in tournament gimmick. Make it, win a few games, even if you can't quite beat the 3 seed. Make it competitive. Bring it to 6 or 7. And I think that'll be a massive stepping stone for this team moving forward.
DT?
I agree with what Tyler's saying. I'm excited about the team, and I think that the handprint that Coach Finch has put on the team is really just got us going in the right direction. So I'm excited, and I also feel really, really good about the talent. You know, there's a group of people, young men that are on that team now that role players and the stars with Carl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Wiggins, and so I think we're going in the right direction, and I do feel like 60 wins is the goal, but I also am even more excited just because I feel like they actually have the ammunition when they show up to the arena every night, and not having the ammunition makes a coach trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat, which doesn't happen very often, as we saw last night with the Gopher basketball team. You have to play perfect to win those games when you don't have quite the talent level as the other team.
Heather, I know you're not going to be able to watch this one because you'll be working tonight, but my question is, Chris Finch said he may be about to cut down their rotation by a man as they make the playoff push. I love the thought of this. Tyler said, this is a team that, they're saying we're not just looking to, sneak in or something. We're gunning for the playoffs. So what's the message he's sending to these guys as they begin that second half of the season?
I think, just that they're serious about making the playoffs, and that should be the expectation. And I think fans, should expect that and be really excited about that. Watching this franchise that really hasn't made the playoffs for quite a while, or I think they made it a couple of years ago, I think. But to see, the past couple of games I've seen with the fans at Target Center, and they've been so excited and standing and cheering, and not because they were asked to, like at the beginning of the game. I mean, later in the game, play is exciting, they're getting a lead, whatever it is, and they're up on their feet and they're cheering because they love this team. And I think that's something that people are really buying in, and they want to see this team do well and succeed. And like Tyler was saying too, even if you don't necessarily make it out of that round and beat the higher seed, at least get in there, get the fans a home playoff game. And I think that's something that all the players need to be focused on too. Like this is the end goal here. This isn't just we're gonna ride out the end of the regular season. I mean, they need to make their push here.
So you're going to have the Wild, the Wolves at 7:00. The Gopher women at 7:00. The Wild are at 6, taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I want to point out that the people who are on this show are never far away. Willie Miles, loving your take so far this morning, Tyler. That's a slippery slope. But this next one is back to our beloved JP, Jesse Pierce, because Jesse has kind of a thing that's been going on for a long time where she has been no fan of the goaltending tandem of the Minnesota Wild. And I started out this season saying I think they have the wrong guy between the pipes. I've always been a Capo Kakinen guy, and I have nothing against Tal, but I just think that Capo is, I thought he was the future until they drafted the guy up from Sweden, and I saw him play this year. He's the future. If I was a GM, I'd probably bring him over now, but that's Tim McNiffen, why I'm not the GM. But so do we have issues where can you do the rotation thing? Do you need one goalie to be the guy, or can you be rotating 2 and still be successful?
I think you need the rotation at this point. I mean, we've talked about it too, just the schedule that they have. You can't rely on one goaltender when you're playing, 4 games, 5 games in a week's time, and you have back-to-back games. It's just not going to work, especially if you're trying to make a run in the playoffs too. I mean, you don't want to have, your number one goalie get completely tired out before the season is even over. But I think the other night in Ottawa, that wasn't a great game all around. Not just goaltending. I think the game-winning goal for sure that Talbot gave up, I'm not sure I don't know if that was a redirect or a screen or what was going on. That was a long shot from a ways out that he gave up late in the third. I didn't think it was a very good goal. The first couple, or at least, one of the first ones that he gave up, the team wasn't playing well around him either. They were just kind of staying around. The defense wasn't getting to the puck. I think they let the guy just kind of walk right in and take the shot. It was sort of a situation where he's like, okay, you guys are going to let me, I'll just take the shot. So Talbot didn't look great that game. I know the last couple of Kappa's gotten the win, but I think he's played also a couple of games where the Wild scored 7 goals too. Right. So it's pretty easy to get the win if you're in goal and your team's scoring 7 goals too. So, I don't know. We'll see, I guess, if they do something at the trade deadline. I know watching that game the other night on Twitter, everyone was just, they freak out. I mean, because, fans on Twitter, they're like, oh my gosh, Talbot's terrible. We can't use him anymore. He's terrible. I'm like, okay, well, you can't just throw him out and go with Kappa every single night either. That's not going to work. So I think some of the talk I've seen has shifted from, well, if we make a trade, we need to get a top center, to, well, it could be that, or what if we trade Dumba, who's hurt right now, or what if, we trade for a goalie. So I think the deadline could be interesting, but yeah, I think you have to go with the rotation for sure.
I'm a pretty big fan of Bill Gaumont, the general manager. I really just seeing him and reading the tea leaves. Not only watch, I'm just a casual fan of hockey, but I also know that in sports, in general, you need a rotation. So I just don't think you can ride one person all the way through, because he's going to be knees, shoulders, neck, taking all those pucks and playing games multiple nights. It just does not work. So I believe that the general manager of the Wild will make the right move. And sometimes making the right move is like what we had with the Timberwolves, to not make a move. So every once in a while you got to kind of work with what you have. You can't always just be, kind of bobbing and weaving. We saw that with the Minnesota Vikings and with Spielman. It was like, just to make a whole bunch of moves, means you made a whole bunch of moves. And they usually don't work when you make a whole bunch of moves.
I kind of relate the hockey thing, or the goalie, to football. The
Shocker.
Kind of all right. I think I want to explore this because I think it's similar and dissimilar at the same time. When you talk about quarterbacks, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. In hockey, it's kind of the same way. Down the stretch, if we don't have that one guy, the stud, then I really struggle to see us getting far in the playoffs, because it's just a completely different style game than you see in the regular season. Now, leading up to it, I think Heather's spot on. You're going to have 2 guys that can play big-time minutes and in big-time spots, because you're going to play sometimes 4 or 5 games in a calendar week. I just struggle with the fact that this team doesn't have an alpha in goal, or even somebody that has separated himself enough to really be the guy and prove that they are going to be able to, the one to take this team moving forward. I wasn't necessarily on Jesse's side earlier in the year when she said we have a goaltending problem, because I thought it would kind of work itself out. And once Kapanen got some more minutes, he would get more comfortable and play better, which I think he has. It just hasn't been nearly enough to, 1, overtake Talbot, and 2, Talbot has been kind of just a big pile of meh. I think if the Wild really want to make a run this season, which it feels like they're priming for, they might want to go and get a goaltender. I don't know what you're willing to give up. I know Heather mentioned Dumba. That would make me very sad. Please don't do that, Bill Guerin. I think Dumba is just too important to what this team does in a long-term sense, especially with his growing leadership. I think that might be a mistake to trade him, but it's tough. You got to have somebody decent in goal. Just remember back in 2003, John Sebastian Jaguar took a 7-seed Ducks to within like a period of the Stanley Cup. Like, goaltending is massively important in hockey in the postseason. And if you don't have anybody who you are comfortable with, Like the Wild got away with Fernandez and Rolison for what, like 4 years, and it worked. We can't rely on something like that right now. You got to have a guy, and because we don't have a guy, it's a big question mark in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this. Sorry, Heather.
No, well, I just could say, I think what, kind of going off of what Tyler was saying too, with you got to have a guy. I think, what you want to have, like when we talk about a rotation or a tandem of goaltenders, what you want to have is you want to have a guy that's maybe playing most of the time or 2/3 of the time, that's the guy. And then you throw like your backup out there, like every few games to give him a break. I think that's the ideal. That's what you want to have. And I think now it's turning into more of a, okay, well, kind of who do we go with? Now you're hearing about like each game and say, well, who do we go with? It's not sort of an obvious, like where it was, I think earlier in the year and in the past last year, where it was pretty much always Talbot. And then like, if they had a back-to-back, then you'd probably see, Capo on that second night of a back-to-back. So I think that's more what you want to have the guy. So yeah, I would agree. And with, as far as Dumba goes, I mean, it sort of feels like a crying wolf thing at some point, because his name has been brought up multiple times in the past too for trade talks. So you never know with him. Fiala everyone kind of thought Fiala was going to be the guy to be gone to, but he's played so well recently and scored a lot of goals. So, now it's kind of like, well, do we want to give him up? Maybe not, but yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And out with you, Tyler, I was not on Jesse's team with this take, but as we get closer and nobody has really grabbed the wheel or taken the reins of this whole thing, I'm starting to think, she may have been onto something. We'll see. Hopefully Capo can put in a good performance tonight against a very good Toronto team and maybe becomes that guy. I'm going to end with this story. We were talking about this yesterday before we were joined by Leah B. Olson, and I was talking to G2 and Willie Miles about it. This is not a pretty story. And unfortunately, it's not an isolated incident either. So I'm just going to read a little bit. This is from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Initially, the story that I saw was from the Pioneer Press and concerned St. Louis Park High School and New Prague. And now it's St. Louis Park and Robbinsdale. School district officials have said that their teams won't play New Prague in athletic contests after their players faced racist taunts in recent games. Quote, I will not tolerate or allow our students to further experience any racism while participating in athletics against New Prague High School. St. Louis Park Athletic Director Andrew Ewald wrote in a letter to Brad Skogerby, his counterpart at New Prague. Ewald said the decision to suspend contests against New Prague came after consulting several St. Louis Park stakeholders and leaders, mostly students, most importantly our students. St. Louis Park officials will also remove the New Prague banner hanging in their high school gymnasium. Ewald told Skogerby that St. Louis Park will reconsider whether to play New Prague at the end of the 2022 season. Ewald said the recent taunting that St. Louis Park hockey players experienced was not an isolated incident, alluding to similar reports from other schools. You see, the same day as that boys' hockey incident was happening, the Cooper High School girls basketball team reported racist taunting, including New Prague fans making animal noises. This from the New Prague Times. That district has also canceled athletic contests with New Prague, which is about 45 miles southwest of Minneapolis. Robbinsdale Superintendent David Engstrom saying in a statement that the incident caused trauma to the Cooper High School girls basketball team and the school community as a whole. We are committed to protecting our students and staff and will take a stance against racism no matter the cost. And as a result, Robbinsdale District schools, including Cooper High School, will not be competing in any athletic events hosted in New Prague for the foreseeable future. Engstrom said the Minnesota State High School League has the responsibility of taking the experience of our students and coaching staff at New Prague High School seriously. The State High School League did not respond to a request for comment. Ewald, the St. Louis athletic director, said in his letter he'd previously had conversations with Skogerby about racist conduct during contests with New Prague teams. So this is not even just that night that this had happened earlier. They had talked about it. New Prague Superintendent Tim Dittburner said in a statement he confirmed that the incident at the hockey game occurred and said it was dealt with immediately, but provided no specifics as to what that meant. His statement, we sincerely apologize for this incident and make no excuses for this behavior. We are taking steps to work with our athletes, student body, staff, and coaches. These type of incidents do not happen in the future. Darrell, I don't mean to rip the Band-Aid off of anything here. My recollection of you, I'm in college and interning at CARE and waiting for your highlights to come in so I could watch you carry the football at Rochester and do what you did. Did you experience this type of thing? I mean, you grew up, as a real anomaly in Rochester, and we've talked sometimes about, kind of growing up in your family in that community, but I'm interested, when you were out and about, is that something that you had to deal with?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's unfortunate. And I'm sad that it's still going on. I think about when I was in 10th grade, I got pulled up to the varsity and they told me, hey, there's going to be some teams that are going to say some things to you. They're going to call you names. They might do some other things, they might try to, pinch you or hit you or, kind of mess around with you a bit under the pile and stuff like that. So you just, you've been taught, and it's unfortunate, you got to be if you're the minority for some reason, you've got to be on a higher standard of, I'm just going to ignore this negative activity that, or this racist activity, that's going on. So I'm glad that it's being brought to the, we're taking the scab off the wound. Hopefully we can, get the medicine that we need, and people can realize that everybody's a human being. We should all be treated equally and just move on. We don't need to have that type of, those types of behaviors and those type of comments.
As I said yesterday, the disturbing part was written in the St. Paul paper was kids are kids, and I'm not making excuses for them, but they aren't fully formed and they make bad decisions and bad choices. So do adults. But that's where I'm going was this wasn't just kids. The way it was reported from the Cooper, it wasn't just the students that were doing this. Parents were doing this too, and saying things and everything. And I'm just like, I know we're living this era where you're supposedly be able to say whatever you want to say. But the fact that we're in the 21st century, 20 years into it, and this is still going on is absolutely disheartening to me. And I'm interested to see where this goes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we all are. Go ahead, Heather.
Well, I was just like the story you had said, I think, the high school league, had commented, I'm wondering what their response is or what their, if they're talking with these schools individually, these ones that have, said, hey, we're not going to play them anymore. Because now all of the, stuff aside, obviously, about how disturbing and ridiculous this all is, that this is still going on. Now you're kind of looking at, okay, well, what does this mean as far as logistically with, athletic competitions with these schools and schedules? And, I'm sure there's a lot of, athletes that are kind of like, okay, well, this, what's going on with our season now? Are we going to play this team? Or are we not going to play this team? I don't know. It feels, I guess this isn't an isolated incident. So if the school is not doing enough, I feel like, I don't know if it's something, maybe the league needs to step in and kind of figure some things out, or, I'm not exactly sure, but it seems like something they should maybe touch base with the schools and figure out what's going on, because are we going to see a bigger ripple effect, I guess, from other schools, in that conference where they're going to say, yeah, we're going to follow suit, or, not play this team, even if there haven't been incidents at their particular games at their schools. I don't know. It feels like this might not be over here, and there needs to be some things figured out.
Yeah. We've had situations with, in other incidents where students have organized schools through social media. They're all walking out at a certain time, and all the rest of this. I'm intrigued. Yesterday the story was St. Louis Park. Then the next day it was St. Louis Park and Cooper. And I'm wondering if by the end of today or in the near future, it's and. I wonder what the other schools in the conference, if they've experienced similar things and what needs to happen. And this isn't just a school thing in New Prague, apparently. This is something that, that the community's got to take some responsibility for, and hopefully some course of action. And I'm interested to know what Mr. Dittburner and the people there at New Prague are going to say about this going forward, because this can't continue to happen. And yeah. I mean, I think the only way we make progress is by talking about it at least, right? I mean, you can't just sweep it under the rug. So
No,
I don't know.
absolutely. I think it has to be brought up. It has to be addressed, and it has to be corrected going forward. I mean, kids learn from their parents and from their community. So hopefully, this can be an experience where we grow from it versus sweep it under the rug and hope that it doesn't happen again. We do need to come together as a community and as a country.
Well, Darrell, you and I had a situation once where we were I can't remember where we were, probably having lunch or something. And you started telling me about having to talk with your kids about when they were getting their driver's license and about what their expectations should be when they were stopped by the police. And this is way before any of these most recent incidents happened here. And I was just stunned by that. I was just like, I honest to God, for whatever reason, I just didn't, when I talked to you or whatever, I just guess I didn't see the color of your skin and that these incidents still happened here. You just laughed at me. You're just like, yeah, you don't know, and I didn't know. I had no clue. I had never walked a step in your shoes or thought about the issues your kids might face and all the rest of it. So this stuff just really impacts me. It's part of the reason why I wanted to do what we're doing here today. I wanted to get different people and different voices and different opinions and bring them together, because it's only by getting these different perspectives that we can get understanding. So I hate having to do a story like this, and I hate to always end on a downer or something like that if we are doing that. But I have no answers, folks. I just put it out there and hope that somebody smarter than me will find a way to make it better.
It's going to get better. The kids are going to be the solution at the end of the day, because they're not going to. They're realizing that this isn't. It's unacceptable behavior. The adults have to also realize that it's unacceptable behavior. But it's just, kids got to bring it home. They got to be like, hey, mom, dad, we can't do this. We can't talk like this. We have to change some of these behaviors, and that's how it's going to change. I don't think it's old dogs don't learn new tricks from, they got to learn a new trick this time. They're going to have to learn a new trick.
Gotcha. Tyler, what are you working on these days, my friend? I know you're heavy NFL.
Yeah, a lot of draft stuff. I have a piece coming out today, I think. It's either today or tomorrow, talking about which players from each position on the defensive side of the football have the most to gain or lose at the combine. And then I've got a full-blown combine preview next week, and otherwise just chugging along. A lot of stuff going on with the NFL draft.
Tyler, are you going to the combine?
No, I actually just got back from a wedding yesterday out in Colorado. So the PTO is pretty much tapped out for right now.
Gotcha.
Tyler, I'm looking at the latest projections by a couple of these things, and I just want to keep this real close because I know we're over, but I want to ask, Channel 5 did a very nice piece on Boy Mafe yesterday. Did anybody come out of the Senior Bowl and have their stock rise more than he did, or is he in a handful of players that are sort of in that situation?
He's in a handful of guys. The biggest winners were him, Jermaine Johnson, the edge out of Florida State, who's kind of seen in the same light as Mafe. Fringe first rounder, second round guy. Jermaine Johnson could go top 10. He was incredibly dominant, showed a versatile move set as far as rushing the passer. And Mafe is just going to test athletically off the charts. I've been told that he's going to test as well, if not better, than what Danielle Hunter did back in 2015. And if he tests like that with the tape that he has, like, he's going to be a first-round pick.
He seems like a good kid. Lost his mom and still got his degree and all the rest at the University of Minnesota. So it seems like whoever's getting him is getting a good player, but a good person as well. Heather, you're back at the tournament tonight?
I am, yes. Class 2A quarterfinals. So this afternoon's Edina is the 2 seed, Minnetonka's 3 seed. Tonight it'll be top seed, undefeated Andover against Brainerd, who they've actually played in the state tournament a couple times recently, the past few years. And then 4 seed Maple Grove against 5 seed Gentry Academy for the last game. And semifinals tomorrow.
And if people are asking themselves, what is Gentry Academy? Gentry Academy is sort of like a Shattuck St. Mary's, but without the residency. So it's a hockey-only school. They played 1A last year, and they've already jumped up to 2A. So that's a hockey school. Dr. Thompson, you just came back from some vacation. You're back. How are you getting your wheels under yourself?
No, I'm just trying to dig out from under everything that's going on. But exciting, good stuff going on here at Boulder Options. Got some growth and some fun things going on. So no complaints.
Good stuff happening here and Let's Play every day. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your takes on this. Tyler, I would love to just be able to go a half hour and just talk about why I've fallen off of drafting a cornerback with the top 15 pick Minnesota Vikings. And I know you're ready to go the other side of that. So hopefully we can make that happen in the not too distant future.
Let's do it.
All right, brother. Thank you. Tyler Forness, Darrell Thompson, Heather Rule, thank you so much. This is Let's Play Every Day, the show where we encourage you to get off the sidelines and get into the game because life, yeah, that's what it's all about. You got to get in there and play.